I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Piplup. Napoleon Bonaparte was a general who rose, after the French Revolution, to become the Emperor of France and a large empire around it. France had just thrown off the shackles of royal rule, and the rest of Europe were not fans of the idea. Coalitions formed multiple times to try to force France to play by the rules, but Napoleon did a great job of defending the country, winning battle after battle. After Waterloo, Napoleon was banished for good, and Britain rose to ascendancy. In the West, he's remembered as a villain, which may be true, and a short guy, which is kind of a myth. In Japan, where France and its aesthetic are romanticized to a fault, the image of Emperor Napoleon in his military regalia is a common picture of European elegance. Most famously, it is the image on the front of the Hanafuda playing cards which Nintendo was founded on. And today, even Mario dons the uniform and pose for the occasional print runs. Piplup is the water-type starter in Generation 4, and while technically beaten to the punch by Delibird, it feels like the Pokemon Penguin fans were waiting for. Cute and blue with what seems to be a bib or a little coat, it's an adorable baby bird. Pokemon Legends Arceus told us, prefers cold climes and appears along coasts. It's an adorable little thing, as cute as any child, but it's also prideful, unwilling to accept handouts from people. In the anime, Dawn had a Piplup, whose slapstick antics tried to take over the comedy bird duties from Misty Psyduck. Your mileage may vary on whether Piplup was up to that task, but it did leave a lasting impression, with its prideful character. Pokemon Platinum tells us, a poor walker, it often falls down. However, its strong pride makes it puff up its chest without a care. And this was the usual pattern for Piplup in the anime. It would fall over like a doofus, but then stand up and shout at the enemy. Pokemon Diamond tells us, because it is very proud, it hates accepting food from people. Its thick down guards it from the cold. And Heart Gold and Soul Silver tell us, it doesn't like to be taken care of. It's difficult to bond with, since it won't listen to its trainer. Piplup was particularly popular in Japan. In the run-up to the release of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, the Sinnoh Nostalgia engine was preoccupied with Piplup. Songs and videos all over the Pokemon YouTube channel, and merchandise in all the stores. There was Piplup candy, Piplup ice cream, Piplup toys, and just about everything else. The name, Piplup, sounds a little like an onomatopoeia for a penguin hopping into the water. It also references a pip, the stage in a bird's life cycle just before it hatches from the egg, and officially becomes a chick. The Japanese name, heard in all the songs and plastered all over the country, is Pochama. Pocha Pocha is the Japanese equivalent of plop or splash, the sound of something falling into the water. Piplup has a little pattern or marking at the top of its head, looking somewhat like a crown. It becomes more royal when it officially becomes a prince, at level 16 evolving into Prinplup. Prinplup is a taller, more adolescent-looking penguin. Its beak now forms a kind of crest or crown on its head, like an intimidating horn or spike. The bib-like outfit has become a sensible suit, and it looks like a handsome young gent. Pokemon Pearl tells us, its wings deliver wicked blows that snap even the thickest of trees. It searches for prey in icy seas. And Pokemon Legends Arceus tells us, it swims gracefully through the frigid sea and sings with a voice like the roaring tide. It has powerful, sturdy wings and dignity to match. Real-life penguins are goofy on land but incredibly adept swimmers and even hunters in the water. However, they are also very social creatures, living in large colonies and working as bonded pairs to raise young. This is less applicable to Prinplup. Pokemon Diamond tells us, it lives alone away from others. Apparently, every one of them believes it is the most important. Pokemon Platinum tells us, because every Prinplup considers itself to be the most important, they can never form a group. Heart Gold and Soul Silver say, it lives a solitary life. Its wings deliver wicked blows that can snap even the thickest of trees. Prinplup's name takes Piplup and ranks it up to being a prince. Potaichi similarly takes Pochama and combines it with Kotaichi, meaning crown prince. Of course, the most interesting thing about a prince is that he will eventually ascend to the throne. At level 36, Prinplup does just that when it evolves into Empoleon. Empoleon is a tall, regal penguin that is now water and steel type. Its beak forms a crown with 3 points like the trident of Poseidon. It has a metallic collar and a pattern on its tummy like regal ruffles, and its wings are edged like swords. Legends Arceus tells us, "Since ancient times it has been revered by the people of Hisui, who call it the Master of the Waves. Its wings are a match for even master-crafted blades." And Pokemon Diamond tells us, "The 3 horns that extend from its beak attest to its power. The leader has the biggest horns." The name Empoleon combines Emperor and Napoleon, and seems to suggest the whole Pokemon was developed as a pun on the idea of an emperor penguin. The Japanese name is similar. Emperte combines Emperor with Bonaparte, the surname of Napoleon. Subsequently, many of Empoleon's Pokédex entries lean into its prickly attitude, like the oft-cited Napoleon complex, which makes smaller men prideful and desperate to assert dominance. I wouldn't know anything about that, though. Platinum tells us, "If anyone were to hurt its pride, it would slash them with wings that can cleave through an ice floe." And Heart Gold and Soul Silver tell us, "It avoids unnecessary disputes, but will decimate anything that threatens its pride." Empoleon can afford to have some pride. When it was first introduced, Water and Steel was a brand new type combination, and it had a nice little competitive niche, able to attack in ways no other Pokemon could. Power creep and the introduction of Ferrothorn saw it become less relevant with time, but it was a big, hard-hitting Pokemon, and with the right moves and abilities it could also be pretty fast. Pokemon Pearl told us, "It swims as fast as a jet boat. The edges of its wings are sharp and can slice apart drifting ice." Empoleon also puts in a good appearance as a hard-hitting and occasionally surprisingly fast-moving monster in Pokken Tournament, where it was one of the later Pokemon to be added, but carries itself with the confidence of a pro wrestler. Like I mentioned earlier, for all their goofiness on land, penguins are agile predators in the water, and for its finisher, Empoleon takes the enemy underwater and attacks them with devastating speed and power. I generally tend to pick water-type starters, and enjoyed an adventure through Sinnoh most recently with Piplup on Pokemon Shining Pearl, my whole playthrough of which can be seen on YouTube and maybe still on Twitch. Penguins are cute, but when the poles were unexplored, they were large and intimidating too. I remember that Lovecraft tried to scare with some penguins in his story At the Mountains of Madness, and it doesn't quite land. But Empoleon could bring some pride and intimidation back to the flightless polar birds. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon was composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Piplup was designed by Yusuke Omura. Writing, producing and editing is by me, Luke Summerhays. And funding is provided by you lovely listeners on Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/podcastio-podcastius to find links to the other shows I make. And if you want, please throw $1 a month our way to help keep things online and listen to shows early. I love hearing from you guys about why you love Pokemon too. I was already 16 when I got my hands on Diamond and Pearl, so I'd love to hear from the nostalgia from younger listeners, or thoughts and feelings from any of you guys. Hit me up on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN about our next 2 monsters, Starly and Bidoof, or about any Pokemon you want to share your love for. And even if you don't feel like doing any of what I just said, thank you so much just for listening. I love Piplup, and remember, I love you too.